Our travels have brought us up into Kinsman Notch, New Hampshire. We're here at Lost River Gorge and Boulder Caves with Kate Wetherell. Thanks for having us today.
Thanks for making the drive over.
This is one of New Hampshire's famous natural attractions, something you can only do when you're visiting the White Mountains. Give us an overview of the Lost River Gorge experience. What do people do here?
Yeah, so we're a 1 mile long wooden boardwalk trail. So you leave the building here and descend on a staircase about 300 feet down into Lost River Gorge. That wooden boardwalk gradually winds its way along Lost River, so you get to see the river. Back up here to the main building, you make a big loop, and there are 11 naturally formed glacial boulder caves that you can explore or bypass while you're down there.
One of my favorite things about Lost River is its history, the story of its discovery. Can you tell us real quickly how Lost River came to be?
The Jackman brothers were out exploring. They were lived down in North Woodstock, about 7 miles down the hill, made their way up here. Way back before we had boardwalk trails and the place was accessible to people, it was moss covered, lots of just sort of cracks and crevices that were covered up by this mat of moss, and they were fishing along the river, and one of them happened to sort of drop down through that moss mat into our what we call today Shadow Cave.
And I think when you come to Lost River Gorge, you feel like kids again. You feel like these kids discovering and exploring and, just finding this natural, enchanting world for the first time. Caves are a big part of this experience. Tell me about the caves. Do you have to go through the caves?
You don't. So you can actually bypass every cave. We've got signage outside of each one that explains how to go through, and if you don't want to, you can go right around. So if the kids or smaller people in your party want to explore and you're not up for the shimmying and crawling, you don't have to. Probably our most famous one is the lemon squeezer, which you know well. So that one actually has a gauge outside of it. So in order to shimmy and squeeze through, it's about a 16-inch opening. So you make your way first through that wooden gauge before you actually get a chance to make your way through the cave.
All right, and some of these caves, they do get a little tight. You have to fit through the gauge, as you just said.
Yep.
But inside, sometimes you're crawling on your hands and knees, sometimes even on your belly to fit through.
Yeah, so they're all lit by lanterns, and then of course we encourage folks to bring flashlights or headlamps if they have them, but totally not necessary. One of the coolest ones, besides the lemon squeezer, which is big with the kids, is Judgment Hall of Pluto. So that one reopened in 2005 after being closed for 20 years, and actually you kind of stoop or duck into it, and there's a 20-foot waterfall inside, so that's pretty cool.
20-foot waterfall inside a cave. It's fantastic. For people who don't want to go through the caves, Lost River is still a worthwhile natural attraction. The waterfalls are beautiful, just a beautiful surrounding.
It is, yeah. It's a great way to get up into the White Mountains, into the sort of the wilderness, into Kinsman Notch, sort of off the beaten path. We have interpretive signage along the entire trail that explains the history and geology and ecology, so a good learning experience too.
And one of the things I like is that on a hot summer day, you just come down here and it's like nature's air conditioning.
It is, yeah. It's usually about 10 degrees cooler when you get down into the gorge.
Just misty, and it's wonderful. You also have programs here, so if you're planning your trip to Lost River Gorge, you might want to consider doing it on one of these days, because in addition to the normal attractions, you have some visitors.
Yeah, so we bring in a naturalist from Squam Lake's Natural Science Center down in Holderness, and they bring in some live animals and do a presentation. We're just doing those once a month. A fun chance to learn a little bit about New Hampshire wildlife that you may see out and about while you're exploring.
Before you come up here to Kinsman Notch, New Hampshire, you might want to visit lostrivergorge.com. Best bet is to book in advance, right?
It is, yes. We do accept walk-ups if we have the availability, but we highly recommend booking at lostrivergorge.com. That secures your spot and saves you a couple dollars on tickets.
Perfect. Bring the family up to Lost River Gorge, Kinsman Notch, New Hampshire, just west of Lincoln. It is a beautiful drive if you're either coming up Route 93 or coming over the Kank from North Conway, New Hampshire. Scenery all the way, and then the pinnacle of it all is right here in the gorge.
Right in Kinsman Notch.
All right, thank you so much for having us.
Great. Thanks for coming out.
You're watching Outside.